Hey, how's it going? You know, it seems like all things hunting seem to balance out. You know, we have easy hunts, we have hard hunts. I like the hard ones. I like to bust my butt for something and then have success. Feels really good when you really commit yourself to something, work really hard, bust your butt at it, and then you see the fruits of your labor. You know, so sometimes it's like you just walk into the woods and shoot a deer. And other times you feel like you're doing everything right, everything you should be doing, and for one reason or another, things aren't working out. Hal Blood has a little saying that it's basically 2 points connecting, and he's accurate on that. It's basically being in the right place at the right time. You can do everything right sometimes and it feels like it's just not happening. Then other times you just randomly go out in the woods and God, shoot a nice buck. So all those things kind of average out over time. You know, you've got some easy hunts and you've got some hard hunts. You know, but at the end of the day, you just got to show up. That's most of the battle right there. Just show up. And that's exactly what happened to me back in 2000. It was my first year of college. I had some concerns about how much time I was gonna have to contribute to deer season. So my first day of deer hunting that year was Veterans Day. We had snow. I came home on a Friday and the plan was to hunt Saturday, and there was gonna be 4 of us, my father, myself, a good friend of mine, and a friend of my father's. So Saturday morning we pile in the pickup and we got word that there was a pocket of deer in an area way up in the North Maine woods. So right about daybreak we get to a spot where there are several sets of deer tracks going up a few skidder trails. So my buddy Chris is with me, and what we do is we follow a group of deer that are going into the woods or going up this skidder trail. And if I remember correctly, it was a breezy day, a little bit of crunch on the snow, and we start heading in. And so we're just kind of picking our way along through the woods, just kind of sneaking and peeking, more stalking than tracking. We weren't really tracking these deer. We were just staying basically where most of these deer were traveling together. And as a general rule, you know, deer will bring you into more deer. So we're just kind of following these deer in. So Chris and I make our way in, and I don't know if we probably get in there about an hour, 2 hours. And we come to a spot where there's a nice buck track coming across the deer that we were following. So just kind of, you know, on a whim, yeah, we'll follow this for a while. It looks pretty fresh. And we'll take this for a ways and see where it takes us. So we don't go very far, and we're coming up the skid trail. Now Chris is right behind me, and there's a little bit of a breeze. And I all of a sudden caught what was undeniably the sound of an antler hitting a tree. And I just froze. And I look back at Chris and I'm like, I'm pretty sure I just heard what sounded like an antler hitting a tree. Now it could have been maybe 2 sticks hitting together. And I kind of talked myself into that at first. I'm standing there and I'm like, maybe it was just a couple sticks that hit. Maybe I'm not, because I didn't hear it anymore. But I'm like, man, it really sounded like an antler hitting a tree. And so we just kind of stood there. No real reason to hurry to go anywhere. And I remember I kept waiting for the breeze to stop to see if I could hear anything. And then I thought I could hear something walking periodically. But again, I was like, maybe it's just me trying to make these up in my head, make these sounds up in my head. Because it's my first day out hunting, I'm pretty excited. So I'm looking up this skid trail and I can see where this deer had walked up the skid trail. And then it looked like about 100 yards in front of me that it kind of opened up into these woods. Basically what we did is every time the breeze came up, I would take a step and then we'd stand there, and then we'd get a little bit of a breeze and I'd take a step. So we did this for a period of like 45 minutes or so. It was quite a while. So I'm like, we'll just take our time, got nothing to lose. So interestingly, I had a doe permit for this zone in northern Maine, and which actually worked out to be beneficial in this hunt. We're making our way up and I finally get to a spot where I can just see down into this opening. And there was a series of skid trails going off to the right. Kind of off to my left, there was some dark growth about 75 yards out. And then over to my left, there was a blowdown. And so I'm standing there and I can see the deer's tracks. The blowdown was probably about 50 yards from me, and I could see the deer's tracks headed towards that blowdown. And I'm thinking, boy, he probably fed in that blowdown. God, he's probably right here somewhere. So I'm looking into this blowdown. So I'm really trying to pick apart the forest at this point. And all of a sudden I catch motion, look over, and I pull my gun up really slow. Pretty soon I see motion again, and it was a deer's tail flipping up and down. I talked to Chris, I'm like, there's a deer right there. And it was just off into this dark growth. And I I got the gun up and I bring the gun forward so I can see its rear end, its whole body, and I can just start to see what basically would be its front armpit, its front shoulder. I can't see its front leg, so I can just see all body and hind end. So I'm holding the crosshairs right on the rib cage. And I keep telling Chris, I'm like, I can't see the head. I can't see the front of the deer. I don't know if it's a buck. I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's a buck that we're on, but I can't see it. But I have a doe permit. So we sat there, we kind of watched it for a little bit. Finally, I tell Chris, I'm like, I'm gonna take it. I just kind of relax, settle the crosshairs on the rib cage, and just start squeezing the trigger. And boom, gun goes off. Deer disappears. And I'm like, what the heck? So we're kind of standing there. I don't hear anything, no noise, nothing. And we're standing there and kind of looking around, and I'm like, where the heck did the deer go? And so I start making my way over. All of a sudden I hear the bushes thrashing and all kinds of commotion. Can't see a deer. And because I just want to get another shot into it. All of a sudden all that racket stopped, and then it was almost like a cartoon. Boom, deer pops up, running across in front of me, and I just started letting the shots fly. And it was the craziest thing. As I'm shooting, this is so vivid in my memory. I can remember looking through the scope, and I had the whole side of the deer right in front of me, running across in front of me. And I can see the bullets hitting the side of the deer. And I could see the side of its rib cage just, every time a bullet hit it, just shake. I went through every bullet in the gun. And I was like, I know I'm empty. I'm gonna try one more time just for the heck of it. And I remember thinking, why isn't this deer dropping? So the deer went around the corner, came out onto the skid road and went around the corner. And I looked at Chris and I'm like, that was a buck. And he's like, holy smokes. He's like, he said the same thing. He's right over my shoulder. And he's like, he could see the bullets hitting the side of the deer. And I'm like, why wasn't it dropping? Like, what the heck is going on? Come around the corner, and then I see the deer laying there. He didn't go very far. And he was hurting from the first shot. The first shot got him a little bit low in the rib cage. And when he was running, but he wasn't feeling too good when he was running. He wasn't running like a healthy deer. So yeah, walk up to the deer. And I remember looking at it, it had a great big gray head on it. So I'm looking at the deer, and of course, a lot of times you judge the size of, I try not to, but it's hard to not do this. A lot of times you judge the size of the deer by the rack. And so looking at the rack, I'm thinking, 180 pounds. I don't know, I always default to 180 pounds for some reason. So Dad comes along, and he's like, geez, yeah, that's nice. That's a nice deer. So we start dragging it out. Of course, this is a newer cut. There's slash everywhere. There's blowdowns. And every blowdown we'd get to, that chest would hit it. And I kept thinking, man, this deer's pulling hard over all of this. And we get the deer out, weigh it, 210 pounds. So nice buck, a nice Veterans Day buck. And the interesting thing about this deer is one of the biologists took a tooth from it. When we get the results back later that winter, the buck was 7.5 years old. So that was an old deer. That's the oldest deer that I've ever shot. And you think about that, that buck survived a lot of winters up in northern Maine, a lot of harsh winters. And you could tell by looking at its head, a great big gray head on it. And you could see that he was past his prime. His rack was going in the other direction. And so that was one of those hunts, where you just show up. Didn't have a real game plan. It was more of a scouting mission, see what was going on. It's my first day hunting that season, my first year of school. And you'll see in the pictures, I found my freshman 15, my freshman year of college. It just shows you that, I was just laid back that day. No real rush, no real hurry to do anything. Wasn't pushing myself to make something happen, and kind of let the events unfold how they will. And I wish I could be a little more laid back more often. I tend to sometimes we try too hard and try to force the issue, try to force something to happen, and it can be a little frustrating. Kind of snowball and kind of make your hunt not enjoyable. So yeah, that was a fun hunt. I think Chris had a good time, made some good memories, and it was an old buck, an old northern Maine buck with a relatively short track job. So I hope you enjoyed it, and until next time, get outside. It's good for the soul. See ya.